We don't just build wealth, we build legacy. Welcome to the Retirement Income for Life show with Doug Vincent. For over 30 years, Doug has helped families right here in the DC area turn hard work into lasting income, helping you protect what you've earned, provide for your family, and retire on your terms. This is where preparation meets opportunity. This is the Retirement Income for Life show. Here's Doug Vincent.
Retirement Readiness Checkup. We're gonna talk about how to make sure nothing slips through the cracks before and during retirement. Today, we're gonna talk about your retirement readiness. All right, welcome to the show. This is Doug Vincent. Good to be with you. Another show for our local listeners here in the DMV, Washington, D.C., Maryland, Virginia, and if you're listening from outside the area, welcome. Also, don't forget our podcast. Listen to previous episodes right there at Retirement Income, the number 4, LIFE on YouTube. And, don't hesitate to contact us on our website, www.retirementincome, the number 4, LIFE.com. No matter where you are on your retirement journey, there are gaps that need to be identified, problems that need to be solved. Reach out to us. We're scheduling free consultations, 100% free, right here in our local office in Greenbelt. We'll provide for you a complimentary retirement analysis. Give us a call, 301-242-3950. Also on our website, you can receive a retirement survival kit. It's absolutely free. You can download that right at our website, at any time. So that's absolutely free for you. All right. So for today, to give you an overview of our show for today, we're going to talk about 12 steps for people close to retirement. If you're 1, 3, 5, 10 years from retirement, we want to look at some things that you should prepare for that next phase. And we'll dig into these 12 things that you should be considering. Also, Social Security, the cost of living adjustment for 2027. Retirees could see a bigger boost in their benefits next year. And we want to look at some of those numbers. The latest numbers are related to your Social Security. Also, your forgotten 401ks. We want to remind you that millions of Americans have a retirement account that was from an old employer. There are different options that you have with that old 401k. You may be looking at it, you may not be looking at it. It's something that you just don't want to forget. It can definitely help with supplemental income and different things in retirement as you, take a look back at that old 401k. All right. And we have time. One more area that we want to tackle eventually, hopefully today, is the federally backed savings for kids. Kids have new accounts to help them get a head start on saving for the future. So no matter what your politics are, we want to take advantage of free money if possible. If not, the earlier you start saving for your children or grandchildren, or, when kids start early, they have a lot more money, in retirement. And so something you want to consider for your children, your grandchildren, or whoever that might be. If we can get to that today, we'll talk about that as well. All right. So some financial wisdom for you. Our quote of the week comes from Miss Oprah Winfrey. And she says, if you look at what you have in life, you'll always have more. If you look at what you don't have in life, you'll never have enough. Billionaire Oprah Winfrey, her financial wisdom for the week. And I hope you are not worried about what you don't have, but thinking about all those good things that you do have, and you'll always have more with that perspective. All right, let's go ahead and dig into these 12 steps for people that are preparing for retirement. If you're in your 50s or 60s, you may be wondering, how am I going to retire in the next 5 or 10 years? You may even have that golden number that you want to retire, but you still, economic uncertainty is still scaring you. And, you may have some age goals, but your economic goals, may put you in a position where you can't retire, at that age. Or, for those of you that are planning hey, you might be able to retire even earlier than, you thought you could. So regardless of the exact timing, I want to congratulate you on making it this far. Okay. You are in that home stretch of a lifelong race. This is an exciting time of life for you. And I am excited for you. And if you're in that retirement red zone, that's, 1, 2, 3, within 5 years of retirement, give us a call. We want to test the strength of your plan. We want to do a fee analysis for you. What are your expense ratios that you're paying on certain investments, things of that nature. Give us a call, schedule some time on our website, 100% free. We'll do that analysis for you right here in our office in Greenbelt. All right. So number one. So one of the 12 is find more money and save it. Simple as that. As you are getting closer to retirement, you need to be urgently, aggressively saving more. Okay. Finding it, saving it, cutting it, and putting it away, cutting those expenses where your money is telling you what to do and you're not telling your money what to do, right? As a pre-retiree, this is your last chance to amass the savings you need to retire comfortably. And you might be really surprised by how much you can save within the next few years. Within the next 10 years, if you wanted to retire at 65 and you're 55, you could really save a lot of money during these next 10 years. And so pre-retirees should use the motivation of that retirement date that's on the horizon. Okay, you already have it in view. It's time to buckle down. It's time to save as much as possible. It's time to cut expenses. Okay, it's time for you to take a look at that budget. Take a look at your tax returns and are you getting bonuses that you could save? Did you get an inheritance that you hopefully didn't run through but can save? And create passive income and save as much as possible. That's the number one thing that I want to mention today is that you got to find more, you got to save more. All right. Number 2, max out your catch-up contributions. Okay. Max out your catch-up contributions, right? If you're 10 years from retirement, and that's not enough incentive for you to save more, find more, and in this case, catch up with your maxing out your catch-up contributions, you get extra tax incentives, when you're 50 or over, and you can save more as, than younger employees, right? Once you get to that stage, you can save more than those that are younger than you, and you can increase your contribution limits in your 401k. Okay, so let's go over a few things for 2026. Anyone who is 50 to 59 or 64 older can catch up contributions up to $8,000 in their 401k. Okay, so for younger individuals, they can't save as much, but you can go up to $8,000 above that 24,500. So you could save, you could max out your 401k if you're 50 to 59 or 64 or older. Okay, $32,500 is what you could be saving. So think about that over 10 years with compounding interest and, a healthy plan of investing, how much you really could have to pad that 401k that you've already begun. All right. The workers that are 60, 61, 62, or 63, there's a catch-up limit that's even higher. Okay, 60 to 63, even higher, $11,250, right? That's thanks to the Secure Act, right? And so that total contribution for you could be $35,750. So the normal amount max limit when you're younger, $24,500. If you're 60 to 63, you can up that by $11,250. $35,750 is what you can max out. So for an IRA, let's talk about that. We're talking about your 401k, but now let's talk about the IRA. The annual contribution limit is $7,500, right? Or $8,600 if you are 50 or older. Okay, so 7,500, normally, but when you get older, you can up that by $1,100 in 2026. Okay, I don't know if it'll change for 2027. Possibly they might raise those limits, but for 2026, that's some catch-up contributions that you can do as you are looking towards that celebration of retirement. All right, number 3, don't rely solely on a 401k or IRA. Okay, you've got to have other streams of income, right? Yes, you can put up to 32,500 away for the 401k, 8,600 to the IRA, right? If you're married, you can double these amounts, and that could be up to 82,200 in tax advantage accounts each year. Okay, so just think about that as a couple. For 10 years, you and your spouse could be approaching $1 million saved in 10 years. Okay, think about that. And if you're doing 82,000 a year with, the right investment plan times 10, that's 820,000 or so. With the compounded interest, you're probably, if you got a good investment portfolio, probably over $1 million. So don't think that these last 10 years, even these last 5 years, is too late. Okay. Assuming that you're eligible to make these contributions, this is something that you must consider, even though you don't want to rely solely on them. You do want to max them out. All right. Your savings doesn't need to stop there. Right. And you can save more, going in different places, savings accounts, things like that. But you want to make sure that you're saving healthily there and not relying solely on that, but you're saving in other places. All right. Number 4, get rid of debt. You got to get out of debt. Get those credit cards paid down. Okay. Get those loans paid off. Okay. The lower your expenses are in retirement, the more your fixed and variable money that's coming in can be utilized for the things that you want to do. And I know that's just not paying bills, right? So it's a situation to where you want to make sure you're not in so much debt that, maybe you can't even retire. Okay. And maybe you can't stop working because you're in so much debt. Okay. And so here's a stat for you. According to the Employee Benefit Research Institute, 77% of families headed by people age 55 to 64 and over have debt. And the average amount of debt is more than $108,000. Okay. In retirement, your income's normally reduced to, normally a fixed level. And a lot of times just Social Security, maybe pensions. We've just talked about 401k and IRAs, but, you've amassed those over the years, but 77% of Americans, 8 out of 10 almost, are carrying a lot of debt. So where are you as it relates to paying down your debt, getting those expenses out of the way? As you know, your retirement income is probably going to be lower than what you were making while you were working. All right. Number 5, talk with your spouse. Okay. If you're married, you should not be trying to do this on your own. Okay. A survey from Fidelity Investments found that finances and retirement planning are extremely difficult subjects for married couples. How about you? Think about that for a second. Is this a point of contention in your marriage, or is it, you all talk about this freely? Statistically, surveys, found that less than half of couples make routine financial decisions, together, and, such as budgeting. Okay. Most couples aren't budgeting together, paying bills. Only 38%. So that's almost, let's say 4 out of 10 married couples jointly discuss their investments and saving strategies for retirement. Okay. Let's not have that being you. Okay. If you're married and you are not listening to this, program with your spouse, maybe she needs to listen to it, but definitely you all want to sit down and have a discussion related to retirement planning, income planning, right? And, other research lets us know as we, counsel and meet with people that, most couples might not even be on the same page related to retirement, how they want to spend their time, how they want to spend their money. The lack of communication can prove very problematic, especially, in retirement. So make time to talk about your retirement and get on the same page. Look towards a happy future, you and your spouse. All right. Number 6, budget. That's an inventory of current spending, okay, your budget, and then project what that's going to be in the future. Okay. What kind of budget are you going to have in retirement? What are the fixed expenses? Okay. What's the inventory of maybe some expenses you don't need that you need to cut out? Okay. And then look to the future. Is your income going to be lower? Is it going to be higher? What is the revenue needed to make sure your budget takes care of all your fixed and variable expenses? Predicting exactly how much you're going to spend in retirement can help you go a long way toward achieving financial security, right? And the less you spend, the less you need to have saved. Okay, let me say that again. The less you have to spend, the less you need to have saved. So that money can last a lot longer if it's not, having to be spent. Okay, so you saved well, but you don't have a lot of expenses. Wow, that money can last you well into, your full retirement years. And once again, we've always said that people are living a lot longer. 25, 30 years in retirement is common today. So you want to make sure that your spending can support, the longevity of your potential retirement. All right. Number 7, plan for out-of-pocket medical costs and long-term care. I know it's not going to happen to you. Okay. I know you're not going to need a nursing home. I know you're not going to need assisted living. Okay. But you need to plan for it. And then after you've planned for it, if you didn't need it, you can spend it on something else. Right. And if you're 10 years from retirement, you need to know the statistics of 1 out of 2 people. Let me just give you one. 1 out of 2 people in the state of Maryland over the age of 74 is going to have some type of long-term care need somewhere in the range of 6 to 16 months. Okay. Every year, those numbers change and they vary, but 1 out of 2 over 74 is going to have a long-term care need. Okay. And it's going to be expensive. Medicare does not take care of long-term care. Okay. And think about it. Your mom, your dad, an aunt, an uncle, somebody in your family. Do you know anybody in your family that had a long-term care need? Was that expensive? Was that inexpensive? That was expensive. You know it was. Okay. And so you've got to plan for that so that your retirement dollars are not being sucked up by the nursing home or by the home health care needs. Okay. And so something you want to consider as you're preparing to retire, 1, 3, 5, 10 years out, you want to take the risk of a potential long-term care need off of the table, and you want to have funds allocated for that. Okay. All right. Number 8, maintain the right asset allocation and start income planning. Okay. Maintain the right asset allocation and start income planning. Okay. Accumulation strategies. You hear me say this just about every week. Accumulation strategies are different than income strategies. This money now has to last you for the rest of your retired years, 65, 75, 85. You're no longer contributing. You're no longer getting a match. Okay. And so that 401k, that IRA, your savings now has to last. Okay. Some experts recommend that your investments become more and more conservative the older you get. Okay. And of course, that's up for discussion. It's based on risk tolerance. It's based on your unique needs. But however, most advisors, suggest you try to at least earn returns that will enable you to keep up with inflation, or even get ahead of it. Okay. So if inflation is tracking at 3%, okay, or around about, let's also add in cost of living, which is maybe 2.5%. Your investments, in order to keep up with cost of living and inflation, need to be in that 5 to 8% range. Okay. You're going to need some investments that will keep pace with inflation so that when you need a raise to your fixed income, you have the money that keeps up with those higher prices for cost of goods and services. Okay. And so as you get closer to retirement, that asset allocation needs to be adjusted and the income planning, needs to be put in place. All right. Now, beyond asset allocation and being concerned about your returns, now's the time to start thinking about those streams of income and the planning for that income distribution each and every month and how you're going to turn those assets into income. Okay. Your net worth is not the most important thing in retirement. The most important thing in retirement is income. You're not going out to work every day. That wealth that you've created, those assets you've accumulated now need to be turned on so that it turns into a monthly check. Okay. It turns into systematic withdrawals of funds that can supplement your income. The income planning in retirement is of the most utmost importance as you're looking towards these next 1, 3, 5, 10 years. You got to know where the income is going to come from and how you're planning to receive it. All right. Next one. Your tax planning. Okay. Tax planning in retirement. And as you near retirement, you need to understand the tax brackets. You need to understand, what tax planning needs to be done. And this is going to extend your life savings. Okay. You don't want to be giving money to the IRS that you don't have to. Okay. You don't want to be paying more taxes than you need on an annual, year by year basis. Right. And one of the key factors with that is the location of the money. Okay. Where is your money invested and what accounts are taxed which way? Okay. For example, tax efficient assets like index funds may be better suited for taxable accounts. Okay. Income producing investments, right, can go into tax deferred or Roth accounts. This is going to reduce your annual tax burden. Let me say that again. Tax efficient assets like index funds may be better suited for taxable accounts, right? Income producing investments can go into tax deferred or Roth accounts to reduce your annual burden, right? You also want to consider Roth conversions in the years before you begin required minimum distributions. Okay. Currently, your required minimum distribution age is 73. It's moving to 75. But converting traditional IRA funds to a Roth IRA now, when your tax rate may be lower, tax is going up, or tax is going to stay the same, or tax is going to be lower. Here's a question for you. Think about it. Do you believe taxes are going up? Do you believe taxes are going to stay the same? Or do you believe they're going down? If I was a betting man, I would say taxes are probably going to increase with all the different things going on in our economy. You're probably at a lower tax rate now than you will be 5 years from now. And this is going to help you reduce as you do conversions. It's not for everybody, but if you can convert from a traditional IRA to a Roth IRA, paying the taxes now, this is going to reduce your future RMDs and provide tax-free income for you later, right? This is especially useful in managing your taxable income in retirement. You want to consider good tax planning as you are approaching retirement. Okay. Number 10, consider your own needs before helping kids or aging parents. Okay. It's your time now. Okay. Not telling you to be selfish, but yeah, you got to take control of your retirement future. Okay. Yeah. You want to help people and yeah, you want to, help your kids, but you know what? It's time for you to make sure you're actually able to retire, and you got to consider that. Okay. If you're 1 to 10 years out and, you got all these mouths that you are still feeding, you may be spreading yourself so thin that you might be working forever. Okay. So, save it for the future. I know your kids are in college and, you got older parents, they might have medical issues, right? You may be even supporting a long-term care need for a mom or dad or aunt or uncle or someone like that. We're living in that sandwich generation and, we feel responsible for taking care of both our kids and our parents. I get it. Okay. And here's what you got to think about though, while you're doing that. If you cannot afford to fund all of it, okay, you're going to have to look for some trade-offs. Do you understand why the priority of retirement planning is so important, especially if you fall in the category of taking care of your kids, taking care of your parents, taking care of both of them. Okay, you're going to have to focus in on how to prioritize balancing this out. And, maybe your kid's going to have to do a little bit more right now. Okay. Maybe the aging parent can't, but hey, your kids can. And so it's time for you to consider the priorities of you being able to retire one day. And hey, what are those trade-offs going to be? All right. Two more. Number 11, know what you're going to do in retirement. Know what you're going to do in retirement. Okay. What is your plan after you've planned out where the money's going to come from? Okay. What is your 24-hour a day, 7-day a week retirement plan for what you are going to do? And I know it's not sit home and watch TV. Okay, maybe that's you. Maybe you have the money to be able to do that. But it's very easy to get wrapped up in the financial aspects of planning for retirement. However, a plan for what to do in retirement is perhaps more important than even, the money sometimes. Okay. The happiest retirees have a purpose and focus interests, and it's time to start dreaming. Okay. What is your dream retirement? Playing golf, traveling the world, spending time with your family, all those things on that bucket list, put them down on paper, know what you're going to do, the classes you're going to take, the classes you're going to teach, the people you're going to help, the volunteer work you're going to do, the hobbies, whatever it might be. It's time to start dreaming. Think carefully about, where you're going to live. Okay. And, this is one time in your life when you are not, bogged down by the job, and, you can choose where you want to live. You don't have to live where you're living now, although you may want to. But, what suits your interests in retirement as far as living, as far as your plans, let's get that dream retirement plan on paper, along with being able to finance it with the income. All right. Number 12, last one, set a date and celebrate. Okay. You've done all the planning. You've done all the prioritization. You've laid out the dream. Now let's set a date and let's celebrate. Okay. Make your future concrete. Okay. Set a specific retirement date. Start actively imagining the future you really want to have. Okay. Tell your friends, tell your family, let's have a party. Let's celebrate this retirement that you have worked so hard for. And, it's not, that far-fetched anymore. You've got it on the calendar. That someday this is going to happen. Lord willing, you make it to that day, and hey, let's celebrate. Let's have a party. This is possibly for you. This is happening in 2026. Maybe a few years away. Okay, you got to make sure that plan is in place. You got to make sure you take these 12 steps into consideration, and prioritize making sure your plans are in order. So give us a call, 301-242-3950. Go to our website, retirement income, the number 4, life.com. We're doing complimentary retirement analysis for you right here in Greenbelt, Maryland. We can do it on Zoom or right here in person. We'll help you evaluate your income strategy, your taxes, your investments, the healthcare costs we mentioned, Social Security options, right? You want to have greater confidence, fewer surprises as you prepare for your retirement. All right. Let's talk about Social Security. And as we approach 2027, here's what retirees need to know related to their Social Security, and specifically as relates to your cost of living adjustment. There will be a cost of living adjustment increase in 2027, and it could be larger than 2.8%, which people received in 2026. But a bigger raise, watch this, a bigger raise doesn't necessarily mean retirees are getting ahead financially. Okay. Just because you got the raise doesn't mean you're not spending more. It doesn't mean you haven't cut your expenses. Okay. And so let's talk about why the projected increase matters and how it's calculated, and why a larger cost of living adjustment isn't often just a sign of inflation. Okay. Remember, we talked about You got to have streams of income growing in places where you hopefully are exceeding cost of living, exceeding inflation, and sometimes these COLAs are just put in place because, there are inflation challenges that we have to deal with. And so, for instance, you got $100 raise, but things cost $100 more. So you're still challenged, and there's really no reason to celebrate. So what's driving the larger cost of living adjustments? Let's talk about that. And once again, like I said, it's based on inflation, specifically the consumer price index for urban wage earners and clerical workers, or what we call the CPIW. The government, what they do is they look at inflation during July, August, and September, right? Then they announce the official adjustment in October for the benefits that are going to begin in the following January. So the benefits will begin, in our case, in 2027. They're looking at these numbers now. Matter of fact, the July numbers came out this week, and August and September, they're going to announce them in October, and then you will see what that cost of living adjustment will be going into 2027. So the early projections right now are currently pointing to a cost of living adjustment in the neighborhood of 3.8 to 3.9 for 2027. Okay, so that sounds great. Okay, if that estimate holds, someone receiving an average retirement benefit could see their monthly check increase by roughly $80. Okay, however, these are only projections. Okay, until all the inflation data is finalized later this year. So you might be saying, well, $80, that's not that much. Some people may think that's great, but hey, you've got to plan accordingly, and that's the projection. And so any raise is, can be a good raise. Okay. So why a bigger COLA isn't always good news, just as we were mentioning. It's easy to hear bigger Social Security raise and think that that's automatically positive news. The reality is that a larger cost of living adjustment almost always means prices have been rising faster. Okay. It's almost always means that things are going to be costing more, right? You're receiving a larger benefit because you're likely paying more for groceries, right? Utilities, think about it. Insurance, your health care, right? Gasoline, right? Many other necessities make up the retiree's budget. These are the necessities that make up your budget. And so, yeah, you're seeing the COLA, but you're also seeing the higher cost, for goods and services. In other words, Social Security isn't trying to increase your standard of living. It's attempting to help preserve your purchasing power, right? Even then, many retirees feel the adjustments don't fully offset the higher costs they're experiencing in everyday life. All right. So why do some retirees, still feel left behind? And, one of the criticisms of the current COLA formula is that it measures inflation experienced by working Americans and not retirees. Okay. So one of those complaints is that they're not considering you that are retired. They're only considering those that are working. And so many retirees spend a much larger percentage of their income on healthcare, prescription meds, housing, insurance, categories that can rise faster than the inflation that's measured to you, that's used to give you this Social Security increase. And that's why many people are saying that they receive a COLA every year, but it still feels like they're falling behind. Okay. And the benefit may be increasing, but so are my expenses as well. Okay, so what does this mean for you as a future retiree and as you're planning to retire, right? This is an important reminder for you. Okay, Social Security was never intended to be your entire retirement income. Okay, you can't just focus in on that being the only, source of income. Okay, you're going to need more. In most cases, Social Security is only about 40% of what you're going to need. Okay, it should be one piece. Social Security should just be one piece of a broader strategy that includes your investments that are, designed to outpace inflation over time, a reliable income plan, the tax planning that we've mentioned, the strategy for managing healthcare, and the real goal isn't just hoping for, a bigger COLA every year. Okay. It's building a retirement plan. Okay. That's resilient enough that periods of high inflation don't force you to change your lifestyle or worry about whether your income will keep up. Okay, let me say that again. You must build a retirement plan. Okay, a resilient retirement plan that includes Social Security, but it's not dependent upon it. Okay, and if you're wondering whether your retirement income will keep up with inflation over these next, 10, 15, 20, possibly 30 years, right? Now's a great time for that second opinion. Now's a great time for that consultation, with us. And we'd be happy to look at all those areas, with you, your Social Security, when you should take it, what your strategies are for income early in your retirement, later in your retirement, how your investments are working, how you're structuring everything related to income planning versus accumulation planning, your tax planning, your overall retirement readiness must be focused on now that you are on your way to retirement. So give us a call, 301-242-3950. Go to our website, retirementincome4life.com. Schedule that free consultation by way of Zoom in our offices locally here in Greenbelt. We'd love to help you work through that. All right. Do you have an old 401k that you haven't looked at in years? There's millions of Americans that have worked, a number of jobs. And when they left that job, they left the 401k there, or maybe you transferred it to an IRA, but you don't look at it. A lot of people, and there's a surprising statistic about old 401ks just sitting dormant. Let me give it to you. An estimated 31.9 million 401k accounts have been left behind at a former employer, holding more than 2.1 trillion in retirement savings. Okay. Left behind and possibly unmanaged. Okay. That's a lot of money. 2.1 trillion is sitting in old 401ks, plus possibly unattended to, right? And that money sitting in those accounts that many workers have, they rarely monitor them. Some people have forgotten about them altogether. Okay. So think about it. Is that you? Do you have an old 401k that's gone unattended to, and some time has passed, and you haven't focused on it? It could be hurting the potential supplemental income that you could receive from that, in the future. That money needs to continue to grow. Americans today, watch this, another statistic, are averaging nearly 13 jobs over the course of a career. I know you don't have 13 401ks that you're not looking at. I sure hope not, right? It's easier today to lose track of an old retirement account than it ever has been before, right? And here's some good news, right? Is the money doesn't simply disappear. Okay. So you that's your money. Okay. And it's left behind, but you now could be potentially leaving growth off the table, and you look back, it's like, man, you got a headache now because of all that money you could have made or repositioned, right? This is costing you over time. Okay. So think about it. Do you have an old 401k, right? Now, why do you think so many people leave them behind? Most people don't do it intentionally, right? They don't abandon them, intentionally and forget about it. They got the new job, started the new 401k. Life just gets busy sometimes. You change jobs, you forgot the password, you didn't, you stopped doing, excuse me, stop doing record keeping from that particular employer, right? Out of sight, out of mind, type of thing. So according to recent research, confusion, during job changes, people just get confused, right? And sometimes don't even understand how to make the moves. Okay. And these accounts that could be accumulating a lot more interest and, could be in line with your retirement plan, just as going, unmanaged, right? And so leaving an account where it isn't, leaving an account is not always a mistake to leave it, where it is, but a lot of times it is because you're not revisiting those investments. You're not managing them, and it's, money that's from, it's afar, it's money away from you. And it's like, hey, I'm not reviewing fees, I'm not updating the beneficiaries, I haven't adjusted the investment allocations. Does the old 401k fit into your current retirement strategy? Ask yourself that question. Okay. Are you in line with that old 401k where it meets you right where you are for your retirement income planning that you are, getting ready to jump into? You're 1 year away. You're 3 years away. Those 401ks, those old accounts need to be paid attention to. So what are your options, right? When you leave an employer, you generally have several choices that you can make. Okay. You may be able to leave the money there, right? And, that former employer will help you manage it. Sometimes that's the case. Secondly, you can roll it into your new employer's 401k. Okay. That's a lot of people do that as well. Thirdly, you could move it into your own IRA. Okay. So now you have a 401k at your new job, and then you've got an IRA outside the job that you rolled over your old 401k into. And then now you can strategize with both of them, right? It's usually the least desirable option that we found, over the years, to leave it with the old employer. But also the other thing you don't want to do is cash it out. Okay. Cashing it out can trigger taxes and penalties, especially if you're under 59 and a half. Okay. 59 and a half or under, you're going to pay a 10% penalty, more than likely in general. And then ordinary income tax. Okay. So the option of cashing out should be the last thing, on your mind as it relates to, that old 401k, but it should go into some planning purposes related to the income you're going to need down the road when you retire. Now, the right decision is going to depend on your individual circumstances. Okay. The key is making decisions that are intentional, right? Instead of just saying, you just forgot the account exists. Okay. You just forgot about it. No, be intentional, consolidate these accounts if necessary. That might make it a lot easier to manage that money and, being able to focus on the rebalancing of that portfolio that's necessary. You've got to understand exactly how those funds can help you prepare, as you get ready to retire. So don't forget those details, right? Whether you consolidate or not, make sure those old accounts aren't just collecting dust, right? Review your investments periodically, confirm your beneficiary designations, understand the fees, has your risk tolerance changed? Are there retirement goals that are differing now than when you were, working at that job 5-10 years before? All right. The bottom line, retirement planning isn't just about saving money, in different places. It's not just about saving more money or having all these different accounts. It's about organizing what you've already saved, right? If you've accumulated multiple retirement accounts over a long career, bringing them together into a coordinated strategy can simplify your financial life and make it much easier to plan for retirement with confidence. Let's make it simple. Consolidation can help, with that. Now, before making any changes, though, you want to understand the investment options you have, available to you, the different fees that may or may not, affect you, the creditor protections, tax implications, all those different things need to be considered, when thinking about the consolidation. So if that's you and you've changed jobs recently or it's been years, okay, maybe you've done that a few times, right? You're not quite sure what's going on with, those retirement accounts, and you're wondering how you might consolidate those. And, you probably should consider a retirement analysis related to how to consolidate those accounts, right? And one of the things we do on a weekly basis is we're reviewing old 401ks, old IRAs, what retirement assets do you have that have been laying dormant, right? Let someone help you understand your options and see how all of these can work together, for your future retirement goals. Give us a call, 301-242-3950. Set up that free consultation, that retirement analysis, right on our website, retirement income, the number 4, life.com. We'll give you that free consultation on that old 401k at any time. All right. So when you're thinking about your retirement, okay, and when we've discussed this, as you are trying to get on track with those 12 steps we mentioned, understanding your Social Security, we just mentioned how an old 401k could help as well, to be consolidated and coordinated into this overall plan that you have. You want to make sure that you are getting these questions answered. Okay. Getting these questions answered by someone that can get to know you, understand what you're trying to do, or your concerns, your objectives, what products do you have in your portfolio, what shouldn't be there, what needs to be added. Your entire financial picture needs a review. Okay. Uncovering the potential opportunities and blind spots is always something that is necessary as you're personalizing a roadmap towards retirement. Your strategies that you had in place when you were working, and as you're working now, they're going to change. Okay, and you should make sure that you can agree with me that your strategies in retirement need to be focused in on income. Okay. You've saved well, but now it's time to turn that income that you've accumulated, those liquid assets you've accumulated, it's time to turn that into income. And that income is going to need to last you for your entire life. Okay. So questions need to be answered. A plan needs to be put in place. And once you're ready to do that, now you got to execute it. Okay. You've got to execute the plan that you've mapped out. Strategy is one thing, but once you got the clarity, once you're confident, okay, that you are ready to implement this, you've got to execute. And, these conversations that we're having on a weekly basis is providing that confidence, that clarity, the right perspective that you need for your retirement planning. All right. So as we look to our last section for today, I do have time to discuss quickly with you these new investment accounts for kids. Okay. We've been hearing a lot about this and what parents and grandparents, they should know. Okay. This is a new type of investment. It's government authorized. Okay. And if you're a parent or a grandparent, or even, someone who likes helping the next generation get a financial head start, it's worth understanding how these accounts work, who qualifies, and how they compare to other savings options like 529 plans. Okay, so let's talk about who qualifies. Okay, the new accounts, you may or may not have heard about them, but they are in place. And here's who qualifies. And this is the biggest headline, is that children who are U.S. citizens that have a Social Security number and were born between January 1st, 2025 and December 31st, 2028 are eligible for a one-time $1,000 federal contribution to get the account started. Okay, so listen to me carefully. I don't care what your politics are. If you know a child, if you have a child, if you have a grandchild, you just are able, if they fall, if you know about this and they don't, and they fall in the parameters of these age groups and are born at this time, free money is available for them. All you have to do is open the account. Okay, that gets them started with $1,000. And now here's the other thing. Families can also open accounts for older children. Okay, not the free money, but the older children that you can get this open up until you're age 18. Okay, and you don't receive the government funding deposit, but you also are getting someone involved with investing and saving. Okay, parents, help your children. Grandparents, help your grandchildren. Relatives, help somebody that fits that category. If they're under 18 or if they are a child, the idea is to give young people a long runway for compounding growth before they reach adulthood. Okay. Don't you wish you had have started saving earlier? I hear it every week. Oh, I wish I had started saving, when I was in my 30s or in my 20s. Okay. So how do these accounts work? Okay. The money is invested in a broadly diversified U.S. stock index fund. Okay. So this is getting children, those under age 18, getting them involved with stock market early. Okay. And at age 18, some withdrawals are permitted for qualifying purposes, such as, college, higher education, if you want to purchase your first home, or if you're starting a business, right? The remaining balance will continue to grow for retirement under rules similar to our traditional IRAs, right? This is an important point because these accounts are really designed for long-term wealth building, right? This is not a short-term spending account where you got $1,000 and you will pull it right out. No, this is a long-term seed being planted so that you're starting children early with long-term investing, right? The combination of an early start and decades of potential investment growth could make even, relatively modest contributions meaningful over a lifetime. Okay. This is very important, folks. Okay. You want to get the retirement planning started, the savings planning started as early as possible for your children, grandchildren, or relatives, right? So how does this compare to the other options? Okay. Before opening one of these accounts, it is worth comparing them to the alternatives like a 529 plan. This may still, offer you greater flexibility if you're saving for college, right? Custodial brokerage accounts. Okay. They also can provide a broader, it can be a broader investment choices more than just the index. You could, if you have a custodial brokerage account, you can invest in a broader range of investments, right? So that's another option, right? Each option has different tax treatment, withdrawal rules, and planning considerations. Okay. But get started somewhere. Okay. The best choice really doesn't depend on your goals. The best choice really just depends on your goals. Okay. Which goals do you have for savings? And you got to have some goals, for savings for, your children, grandchildren, and, and the like, right? Are you saving for college? Okay. That's one goal, right? Are you going to help with, a future home? Are you trying to help them just grow long-term wealth? You trying to get them ready to have seed money for a business. This is why financial planning is so important, right? And the best fit, is going to be unique to you. So what's the bottom line? We often talk about the power of compounding interest, and this program is built around that concept. Okay. Giving a child money to invest at birth or even early in life provides something, man, that's incredibly difficult to replace later. It's going to be very hard to replace this at a later date, right? If you start now, you avoid missing decades of potential growth, right? This is going to have a tremendous impact on them. And even if it's relatively small contributions, the discipline of saving and understanding long-term growth and compounded interest, this is something that, they're going to appreciate and grow from, for their entire life. So before committing to any saving strategy, it's important to understand how it fits alongside your own retirement goals, right? Your emergency savings, your debt management, any other priorities that you might have. This is a great gift for the next generation, and it shouldn't come at the expense of your own financial security, but it should be a part of a prioritized plan. So you're maximizing all of the benefits that can go into an overall, family plan. So whether it's a 529, whether it's this government-backed account, whether it's a custodial brokerage account, you want to get started with your children and, grandchildren investing in these accounts now, early as possible. This makes sense for any family, right? And as you're working through these things, okay, we'd be happy to help. Okay. During our overall retirement analysis and our complimentary, financial consultations, we discuss these goals related to family members, children, grandchildren, and relatives, right? You just, need to explain to us what you'd like to accomplish. We go over the pros and the cons of each option, and we help you create a plan that benefits both your family today and the future generations that you're trying to assist, in this area. So give us a call, 301-242-3950, go to our website, retirement income, the number 4life.com. No matter where you are in America, if we can help you, we can do a Zoom meeting. If you are in Washington, D.C., Maryland, or Virginia, schedule a consultation right here in our Greenbelt office. We'd be happy to help you with all of these things we've discussed and much, much more. Let's take care of our retirement planning and let's start planning for our future generations savings as well. So we look forward to helping you, and we look forward to helping with all your retirement needs.